The millionaire's son was losing weight every day until the nanny discovered the shocking truth. The sun had just begun to rise over the quiet suburbs when silence filled the Sullivan residence. Ethan Sullivan, founder of a successful tech company, sat motionless in his upstairs office. On his desk rested a framed photo of his late wife, Claire, the woman he lost the day she gave birth to their son, Alex. 2 months had passed since that day, and Ethan hadn't truly looked his son in the eyes once. He buried himself in work, trying to drown out his grief. Everything related to the baby was handled by his mother, Margaret Sullivan. That morning, a faint sound from the kitchen broke the silence, the clatter of cabinets, followed by a trembling voice, almost a sob. Ethan frowned and stood up. He had never heard crying from downstairs before. When he stepped into the kitchen, the sight before him froze him in place. A young woman, Emily Rivera, the new nanny starting that very morning, held baby Alex in her arms, trembling, terrified. Her face was pale, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Alex's skin clung to his tiny bones, his eyes sunken, his breathing shallow, a ghost of life. "Oh my God," Ethan whispered, stepping forward. "What happened to my son?" Emily's voice quivered, tears filling her eyes. "Mr. Sullivan, I just got here this morning. I found him like this in his crib. He barely has the strength to cry. I tried giving him formula, but he can't even swallow." Ethan staggered back, his face drained of color. For 2 whole months, he'd barely left his office. He believed his mother had everything under control, but now his only child lay limp in the arms of a stranger, barely alive. "This can't be happening," he murmured, voice cracking. "Where's my mother?" A familiar voice answered behind him. "Ethan, what on earth is going on?" Margaret Sullivan appeared in her robe, feigning confusion. But for a split second, panic flashed in her eyes before she masked it with calm. "Heavens, you scared me half to death. What's with all this noise?" Ethan turned, trembling with rage and fear. "Look, Mother, look at what's happening to my son." Margaret's eyes darted between Alex and Emily. For a long second, no one spoke. Then her voice, steady, too steady, broke the silence. "Good thing you came down, Ethan. I caught this nanny shaking the baby. That's why he's crying so much." Emily's eyes widened. "I wasn't shaking him. I was trying to wake him up. He wasn't breathing right." The air in the kitchen grew heavy. Ethan's gaze flicked between the 2 women, his respected mother and a terrified young woman fighting for the baby's life. He didn't know who to believe. But one thing was clear. If he didn't act now, Alex might not survive. Ethan inhaled sharply, his voice trembling. "I'm calling the doctor, right now." He lifted Alex into his arms. The baby felt weightless, terrifyingly light, like paper. "Oh, God," Ethan whispered, his heart breaking. "How long has my son been starving like this?" Ethan stood in shock, holding his son in his arms. Alex's body felt weightless, his head flopping backward, limp like life had drained from him. He looked at Emily, the young woman gasping for air, eyes brimming with tears. She clutched the edge of the table, trying not to collapse. "I tried. I was just trying to help," she whispered, her voice trembling on the verge of breaking. Margaret stepped closer, her tone shifting into feigned concern. "Can't you see? She's putting on a show. I've been home all morning. I went downstairs to get a glass of water and caught her shaking the baby. That's why Alex is so exhausted." Emily turned sharply, fury in her eyes. "That's not true. He was already like this when I arrived. I found 3 full bottles of formula in the trash. He couldn't even lift his arms, let alone cry." "Please believe me," Margaret scoffed. "She's just trying to cover her tracks. Girls like her. They're all the same, no matter where they come from." Ethan looked from his mother to Emily. One was the woman who raised him, who had always been there. The other, a stranger he met just this morning. But it was those trembling hands, that frantic voice. They were the only things keeping his son alive right now. Something inside Ethan stirred, not the logic of a businessman, the instinct of a father. He looked down at Alex again. The baby didn't cry, didn't twitch, just lay there, too weak to respond. "This isn't right," Ethan muttered. He looked up at Emily. "Do you have a car?" Emily shook her head. "I walked here." "All right," Ethan said, holding his son tighter. "I'm taking Alex to the doctor, and you're coming with me." Margaret moved quickly, alarmed. "Ethan, that's not necessary. Babies get tired sometimes, that's all. Give him some milk and let him rest." Ethan stepped back, his eyes cold. "No, Mother. My son's not tired. He's starving. And if I wait any longer, I might lose him." He turned to Emily, voice firmer now. "Let's go." The air in the house thickened with tension. Margaret stood frozen, her hands clenched at her sides. Ethan walked out of the kitchen with Alex in his arms. Emily followed without looking back. Margaret stared after them, her expression darkening. Things had just slipped beyond her control. The emergency room glowed under harsh white lights, the smell of disinfectant thick in the air. Ethan sat stiffly on a chair, hands clenched, eyes fixed on the closed door. Inside, Dr. James Carter, the family's pediatrician, was examining baby Alex. Emily stood silently nearby, tears streaming down her face. She had never seen a child so frail, skin pale, pulse faint, his tiny body barely holding on to life. After what felt like an eternity, the door opened. Dr. Carter stepped out, his expression grave. "Ethan," he began softly, "Alex's condition is severe. He's suffering from acute malnutrition. He's lost nearly half of the body weight expected for a 2-month-old. Ethan froze. "Malnutrition? That's impossible. My house has everything. My son. How could this happen?" Dr. Carter didn't scold him, but his eyes were heavy with sadness. "This isn't about poverty, Ethan. This is about neglect. The baby hasn't been fed properly." Margaret entered just then, her face a portrait of feigned shock. "Oh my God, how could this be? I fed him every day. Maybe he's just weak, like his mother was." Dr. Carter's gaze hardened. "No, Mrs. Sullivan. Babies don't lose half their weight just from being weak. This is serious negligence." The room grew suffocatingly quiet. Ethan's world blurred into silence. He looked through the glass at Alex lying inside an incubator, IV tubes attached to his fragile arms. "Oh, God," he whispered. "My boy, what have I done?" Emily gently took his hand. "You didn't know. It's not your fault, but Alex needs you to be truly here now." Ethan looked at her, eyes red with guilt. "Thank you, Emily." Dr. Carter's voice broke the silence again. "I've admitted him to intensive care. He'll recover if we act fast. But I need to know, who has been the baby's primary caregiver these past 2 months?" Margaret hesitated, biting her lip. I have." "Then you'll need to answer a few questions," Dr. Carter said coldly. "Because this isn't just medical, it's a matter of human responsibility." Margaret lowered her head. Ethan stood motionless, his heart heavy with guilt and suspicion. For the first time, he began to doubt his own mother. 3 days had passed since Alex was admitted to the hospital. Ethan barely left the building, but he wasn't by Alex's side as often as Emily was. Emily rarely left the baby's side, from the first IV drip to every diaper change, every nap, and every soft whisper into the baby's ear. Though she had no children of her own, she cared for Alex like a real mother. What was truly strange, Alex only calmed when Emily was near. Every time a nurse carried him for a bath or a checkup, he cried uncontrollably, even when exhausted. But as soon as Emily held him again, his heart rate steadied. Ethan stood behind the glass wall, watching it all unfold. Emily sat in the room, cradling Alex against her chest. She whispered softly, "You're strong, Alex. I know you're fighting. You're not alone. I'm right here." Ethan heard every word. His heart clenched. He had abandoned his son for far too long. And yet, this stranger, someone he had known for less than 3 days, made his child feel safer than anyone else. At that moment, Dr. Carter approached. "He's doing better," the doctor said. "Still weak, but showing good response." Ethan nodded, but his eyes stayed on Emily and Alex. Why? Why is he so attached to her? Dr. Carter gave a soft smile. Newborns recognize voices, heartbeats, scents, and most of all, they sense genuine affection. That young woman isn't just doing a job. She truly cares. Ethan stood silently for a long time. He had never imagined learning how to be a father from a young woman he barely knew. When Emily stepped out of the room and saw Ethan standing there, she gave him a gentle smile. He just fell asleep. First peaceful nap in 3 days. Ethan looked at her, his voice sincere. "Thank you, Emily, not just for taking care of Alex, but for doing what I couldn't face." She looked at him, eyes filled with quiet kindness. "You still have time, but you need to step into your son's life, right now." Ethan nodded, and for the first time, he felt ready to do what he had avoided for 2 whole months, to truly be a father. From the hospital corridor, Margaret Sullivan quietly observed everything happening behind the glass. The scene was intolerable. Emily holding the baby, Ethan watching her with gratitude and trust. Emily's presence, quiet but steady, was slipping into the role Margaret believed belonged to her, the most important person in her son and grandson's life. Margaret could feel her control unraveling thread by thread. No one listened to her anymore. No one asked her opinion. And the most infuriating part, the baby never settled in her arms, but was perfectly calm in Emily's. Her expression hardened. Those eyes no longer held the concern of a mother, but the calculating glare of a woman who felt threatened and was ready to strike back. That girl, who does she think she is? Just a nanny. If she believes she can steal my son, my grandson, she's gravely mistaken. Margaret turned away, her eyes glinting with quiet scheming. From that moment on, a plan began to take form, calculated, ruthless. This wasn't about control anymore. It was about eliminating Emily, permanently. Alex's condition had stabilized, and after nearly a week in the hospital, he was discharged. Ethan brought him home, and though he didn't say it out loud, he expected Emily to come with them. Emily agreed to return, but there was caution in her eyes. She could feel Margaret's stare, like a shadow that followed her every move, waiting to strike. She wasn't wrong. 2 days after they returned to the mansion, one morning, Emily was feeding Alex when Ethan walked into the living room, pale and tense, phone in hand. "Emily, what is this?" He held up the screen. There it was, an Instagram account under her name, filled with provocative, suggestive photos, showing her with various men in inappropriate poses. Emily froze. I don't even have Instagram. I don't know where those pictures came from." Margaret stepped in from behind, perfectly timed. "How strange. I happened to find that account just last night. Someone like her caring for a baby? It's concerning, Ethan." Emily spun around. "You're lying. Those photos are fake." Margaret shrugged. "You can say that, but everyone's seen them now. If this spreads, your reputation could be ruined." Ethan looked at Emily, then at the phone again. He wanted to believe her, but the timing, the filth, was too precise, too calculated. But that wasn't the end. That afternoon, while Emily was in the kitchen, Margaret sneaked into her room and slipped an old gold bracelet, Claire's, into a pillowcase. Later that evening, she cried out dramatically, "Ethan, Come upstairs. Look what I just found in her room." Ethan rushed up. Margaret held out the bracelet. Claire's bracelet. It's been missing since her death. And now, it's in Emily's room. Emily walked in, stunned. "No, I've never seen that. You planted it. You're framing me." "Then why is it here?" Margaret replied coldly. Ethan stood between them. His thoughts were chaos. He trusted Emily, but part of him feared scandal, feared another disaster. At last, he exhaled. "Emily, I'm not sure what's happening, but there's too much uncertainty. Maybe you should take some time off. Let things settle." Emily was silent, then nodded, but her eyes held a pain too deep to hide. "I understand. When things fall apart, the outsider is always the first to be blamed." She left that night, taking nothing but a small bag and a shattered heart. The mansion gate slammed behind Emily. That sound was like a verdict. But what remained inside was Alex's endless, heart-piercing cry, a cry no one could soothe. 2 days, 3 days, a week. Alex kept crying. He had to hire a caretaker overnight, but no nurse could calm him. No nanny lasted. One quit after 2 days, another after 1 night. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sullivan," said the old nanny. "That baby doesn't need a caretaker. He needs someone he trusts. And she's gone." Ethan barely slept. Every time Alex screamed, he wandered the hallways with his son, wondering why he'd sent away the only person who could make the boy feel safe. The mansion grew heavy, cold. Only Alex's cries and the silence of guilt remained. Late one night, Ethan opened his laptop and reviewed the home security footage, hoping for even the faintest clue. Then he froze. A clip from the day the bracelet appeared in Emily's room. A quiet door creak, a familiar silhouette slipping inside, and Margaret's unmistakable voice. "Put it there, quickly. My son won't suspect a thing. That stupid girl will be gone by morning." Ethan's heart pounded. His knuckles turned white, gripping the mouse. He pulled another recording, a private phone call when his mother thought no one was home. "The account? Of course I made it. That girl needed to learn her place. Who told her she could look at my son like that?" Each word hit him like a blade. He shut the laptop, trembling. No more doubt. It had all been his mother's scheme. The next morning, Ethan walked into the study. Sunlight streamed through the window, falling across Margaret's silver hair as she calmly sipped coffee and read the paper. Like nothing had happened. "We need to talk," Ethan said, voice low but sharp. Margaret looked up with a faint smile. "Finally. I know you're tired, darling, but believe me, that girl was never worthy of your trust." "You're right," Ethan said coldly. "She wasn't worthy of what you did to her." Margaret lowered her paper, frowning. "What are you implying?" Ethan set the laptop on the desk and pressed play. Her own voice filled the room. "Put the bracelet there. Hurry up." Margaret's face stiffened. Then she gave a brittle laugh. "Oh, Ethan, you've been spying on me? That's just a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Ethan shouted. "You destroyed an innocent woman's reputation, drove her away, and almost cost my son his life. You call that a misunderstanding?" "You don't understand," Margaret snapped. "She's dangerous. She was replacing me, seducing you, stealing Alex, taking everything that's mine." Ethan stepped closer, voice trembling with fury. "I'm not something you own. I'm your son, not your possession." Margaret's voice rose, trembling. "After Claire died, you were all I had. No one loves you like I do. Claire, that girl, they only used you." Ethan froze. "Claire? What did you just say?" Margaret's lips tightened. Silence, but her eyes said enough. "Claire's death was an accident," Ethan whispered. "Wasn't it?" Margaret turned away. "I only wanted what's best for you." How? By destroying everyone who gets close to me? By chaining me to your sick version of love? Margaret screamed, "You'll regret this. You're choosing a stranger over your own mother." A long pause. Just breathing. Then, quieter. "You were the person I trusted most, and now I can't even look at you the same way." He stepped back, his voice trembling but clear. "You don't belong in this house anymore. Pack your things. You're leaving today." Margaret glared at him, eyes blazing with rage and hurt. "You'll see. No one will ever love you the way I do, Ethan." He didn't look back. "Then maybe, Mother, you don't know what love really is, because real love doesn't destroy." That afternoon, the mansion, once filled with pride, held only a father and his weary child. Ethan lifted Alex into his arms, brushing the baby's soft hair. "Let's go, son. Let's find the one person we owe an apology to." The baby blinked up at him, eyes brightening at the sound of Emily's name. Ethan buckled him into the car seat, closed the door, and looked down the long road ahead. "This time," he whispered, "I won't miss my chance again." The car pulled out of the mansion. Ethan kept his eyes on the long road ahead. In the back seat, Alex rested quietly, his face calm for the first time in days. It was as if he too could feel. His father was finally doing the right thing. Ethan drove across town, down quiet suburban streets, until he reached a small white house with a modest fence and flowering vines curling along the gate. It was where Emily lived with her aunt. He got out, holding Alex close, hesitating a moment before knocking on the door. It opened. Emily stood there. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair tied back loosely, her face bare yet warm and radiant. She said nothing. She didn't have to. Because the next second, Alex lunged forward, reaching toward her with his tiny arms as if to say, "Take me home." "Emily," Ethan said softly. She lifted Alex into her arms. Instantly, the boy calmed. No crying, no flinching, no fear, just a baby. Finally safe again in the arms he trusted most, Ethan stood still, his voice thick. "I was wrong. Everything you said, it was true. I let my mother control the narrative. I let you walk away in shame. And worst of all, I took away the only person who truly loved my son." Emily stayed silent. She gently placed Alex into a playseat by the door where he calmly chewed on his pacifier, playing with an old stuffed bear. "I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness," Ethan continued. "I came to ask for a chance, for my son, and for me. Because I didn't know what was right, until I lost you." Emily looked at him for a long time. "Ethan, I'm not the girl who blindly trusts anymore. I need more than words." He nodded. "Tell me what you need." Emily took a deep breath. "First, if I come back as someone who's respected. Not a maid, not a babysitter. I'm the woman who saved your child. Second, I have to have a voice in Alex's care. I want a say in every decision involving him. Third," she met his eyes, "I need to be protected from your mother, in every way. I won't endure another insult, ever again." Ethan didn't hesitate for a second. "I agree. I promise. She's gone. She won't come back. And if you want it in writing, I'll sign anything." Emily lowered her head. A single tear slipped down her cheek, not from pain, but from finally being seen, heard, and believed. She stepped forward, placed her hand on Ethan's cheek. "Then I'll come back, not for you, but for Alex, because he needs me. And if I can give him a home full of real love, I will." Ethan nodded. "And I'll do everything I can to make sure I never lose you again." Behind them, Alex let out a tiny giggle, the first in days. They both turned, then looked at each other. Smiles formed slowly on their faces, and just like that, 3 broken people, hurt, lost, scarred, began to heal. Not perfectly, not easily, but honestly, as a family. And so Emily returned to the mansion not as a housekeeper, but as the heart of the home. The once distant staff now treated her with clear respect, and Alex, sensing it all, grew brighter, more joyful with each passing day. But the biggest change was in Ethan. Ethan once believed he understood responsibility. As the CEO of a corporation managing hundreds of employees and signing million-dollar deals monthly, he thought he had it all figured out. But changing Alex's diaper at 2 o'clock in the morning under a dim nightlight made him realize being a father isn't about providing, it's about being present. Emily patiently taught him everything: how to hold the baby properly, how to test the milk temperature before feeding. "Don't shake the bottle too hard. You'll create air bubbles," she said gently but firmly. Ethan laughed, wiping milk off his shirt. "I thought I knew everything until this bottle." Emily shook her head, her eyes a mix of amusement and tenderness. "Alex will teach you everything, as long as you're willing to learn." And he did, day by day. He learned to recognize Alex's cries, the hungry one, the sleepy one, and the one that just meant, "Hold me." He learned to change a diaper with one hand while the other held down a squirming baby. He learned to lull Alex with silly, made-up songs that somehow worked better than classical music. And for the first time, when Ethan placed Alex on his chest and the baby slept soundly, as if the world had never hurt him, Ethan knew he was forever changed. For Emily, watching Ethan slowly grow into fatherhood was a strange and moving experience. Sometimes she felt sorry for him, waking up startled at night, fumbling through exhaustion. Sometimes she felt amused, finding the 2 men of the house asleep on the couch, cartoons still playing. But most of all, she felt grateful, because finally Alex had a real father, not just on paper. And then something else began to grow, not loud, not dramatic, but gentle, like a light switching on in the dark. Love. At first, Emily didn't dare name that feeling. She had been hurt too many times. She was afraid she was confusing gratitude with affection. But then came the moments that her heart couldn't deny. One morning, Ethan skipped an important meeting because Alex had a mild fever. He stayed by his side all day, checking his temperature, telling silly stories despite the dark circles under his eyes. Emily walked into the room and found him asleep by the crib, still holding Alex's tiny hand. She froze, and in that moment she knew this was no longer the man of her past. He was the man of her future. Ethan felt the same. The more time he spent with Emily, the more he realized he didn't need her just for the baby. He needed the way she said his name, half strict, half teasing. He needed her eyes when she read fairy tales to Alex, like she was part of the story herself. He needed her laugh, the sound that made the house warmer each day. And he began to understand. He loved her deeply, maturely, not out of duty, but out of choice. One autumn evening, Ethan and Emily were walking Alex around the garden. Leaves were falling gently, the air crisp and clear. Ethan stopped under the bougainvillea arch. The one Emily once said reminded her of her aunt's house. He asked her to close her eyes. She laughed, suspicious. "What trick is this?" "Trust me," he said. When she opened her eyes, Ethan was kneeling under the warm garden lights. In his hand was a simple, elegant ring, not flashy, but deeply sincere. "I lost everything, my wife, my peace, my clarity. But you didn't just save Alex, you saved me. I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing. If you're by my side, I won't be afraid of anything." He took a deep breath, voice slightly trembling. Emily stood silent, her eyes searching his face for truth. "You don't owe me a proposal because you feel guilty, Ethan." He stepped closer. I'm not proposing because of guilt. I'm proposing because every version of my future has you in it." Emily's eyes welled up. Then a slow, small nod. No tears, no doubt, just a smile, warm, radiant, and filled with real love. That night they held each other quietly, with Alex sleeping peacefully beside them. No words were needed. They both knew. This journey wouldn't be easy, but it was real, and sometimes being real is enough to begin again. Love isn't always a spark that ignites from the start. Sometimes it's a steady flame, one that warms you for life. They married a few months later in a small ceremony with close friends and family. No glitz, no glamour, just real love. Ethan, now a devoted father and husband. Emily, no longer broken, but strong and boundlessly loving. And Alex grew up wrapped in laughter and warmth, held close by both mom and dad. This family wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that's what mattered most. The small wedding was held in the backyard where Emily once took Alex for afternoon walks. No grand stage, no fireworks, just warm fairy lights, wildflowers, a few modest tables, and lots of laughter. And the opening act was Alex. The nearly 3-year-old walked down the aisle in a tiny tuxedo, holding a flower basket. He tripped and got up again, looking around like a tiny star owning his moment. Guests chuckled affectionately. Ethan waited at the end of the aisle, eyes misty as Emily appeared. She wore a simple white dress, hair tucked behind a spray of bougainvillea, the same flower under which he had proposed. No words were needed. Their eyes said it all. After the wedding, life didn't become perfect. It became real. Emily was pregnant again. She couldn't even stand the smell of soap. Ethan, once a busy CEO, turned into a cleaning expert, an accidental chef, and the handholder during every nausea attack. Alex clung to his mom, whispering to her belly, "Baby, don't make mommy tired, okay? Big brother loves you already." The house was always noisy, laughter, clattering pans, toys crashing to the floor, but never lacking warmth. One night, after tucking Alex in, Emily leaned into Ethan's shoulder. "I still can't believe we made it through all that, to get here." "And we'll keep making it," Ethan kissed her forehead, "as long as we're together." And Margaret? After Ethan asked her to leave, she moved to a quiet town hours away. They didn't cut her off completely, but neither were they close anymore. Each year she called once, on Alex's birthday. Short words, a brief greeting. Ethan wasn't cold, but he wasn't warm either. Margaret once held control over everything, and now she had only silence. Some said she got what she deserved. Others said she was lonely. But Emily always told Alex, "Grandma loved you in her own way. Not everyone knows how to love the right way." The second baby came earlier than expected. In the middle of a rainy June night, Ethan rushed Emily to the hospital, almost forgetting his phone. A few hours later, they welcomed a baby girl. Deep brown eyes like Ethan, soft curls like Emily. Alex held her for the first time and whispered, "I promise I won't steal your toys, okay?" Ethan and Emily exchanged a look, knowing this was the family they dreamed of. Not perfect, not flashy, but full of breath and truth. Years later, Alex started kindergarten. Their daughter learned to babble, "Dada, Mama." Emily opened a small bookstore nearby. Ethan scaled back his work hours to pick up the kids and cook dinner. They still bickered over silly things. "How long has that bowl of noodles been in your office?" "You made orange juice with no sugar. How am I supposed to drink this?" But after every argument came laughter and hugs and the quiet reassurance that we still choose each other. Because that's what makes a family. Not wealth, not perfection, not appearances, but honest love, forgiveness, and the courage to start again.